The first 2 months of 2018 has actually been filled with a lot of really good games, and there's even more coming in the next few months, both indie and AAA. But right now, let's talk about 5 smaller yet awesome games from February 2018. Starting off at number 5, we have The Station, which is a sci-fi mystery game. In The Station, an alien world has been discovered, but that world is in the middle of a civil war, and a 3-person crew is sent up to research this new alien life in an undetectable space station, in an attempt to learn enough to form a peaceful relationship. Eventually, contact is lost with the crew, and you're sent up to investigate and see what happened. This seems to be very similar to Tacoma and Gone Home, where you're exploring and learning more about the crew and what exactly was going on board from their belongings and ship logs. This does seem a bit more eerie though, and I'm sure the aliens aren't the nicest aliens. I mean, you know, what happened to the crew? Did they eat themselves? Only way to find out is to just rummage through all of their shit and just invade their privacy. But no, seriously, in the trailer, they do show like a creepy shadow painted on a wall that walks past you, so I'm assuming that the alien here is a threat and is going to be something that you are going to be hiding from and or running from. They do show like a creepy shadow painted on a wall that walks past you, so I'm assuming that the alien here is a threat and is going to be something that you are going to be hiding from and or running from. But what actually has me really interested in this game is the team working on it. The team is made up of developers that have worked on BioShock Infinite and also Kingdoms of Amalur, which way too many people slept on, I will add. But with a team like that, I'm sure this game won't be horrible. Up next, at number 4, we have Dragon Quest Builders, which actually came out over a year ago on other platforms, but it's just now hitting the Nintendo Switch and has people talking about it all over again. So if you've never actually really looked into this game, it is easy to dismiss it as another Minecraft clone. While it does involve building, and yes, there are blocks, it's really not a Minecraft clone at all. It really stands out on its own because it's technically like a light RPG. You'll be building up and managing different towns, completing quests for different townsfolk, and also protecting the town from enemies. The game spans across 4 different worlds, each one fully explorable. Like digging yourself into a mountain may lead you to find some rare item that you didn't have. So exploring is a must. There is some light tower defense mechanics here too, when you're defending from waves of enemies that include strategically placing traps and towers, but if you're like me and you don't really enjoy tower defense games, it isn't gonna hurt the game experience for you at all. This game is set in an alternate reality after the events of the original Dragon Quest, where the hero sided with the Dragon Lord and let the world get taken over by darkness. And because of this, people have lost their ability to build. And it's your job as the builder to just recraft everything. Yeah, it's kind of funny and weird, but that's definitely part of this game's charm. It's kind of what makes it stand out on its own. And if you are interested in it and you're afraid to spend the money on it, there is actually a demo up on the eShop if you want to play that and check that out beforehand like I did. Coming in at number 3, we have Feja, or Fae. It's Swedish for fairy, actually, fun fact. Another fun fact, I'm not Swedish, so I really don't know how to pronounce that. This game is being developed by Zoink Games, the same team that brought you Stick It to the Man. It's an action-adventure game where you play as this little fox-looking creature, and you're trying to defend the forest from an entity known as the Silent Ones. Exploration seems to be the name of the game here, with you running around the forest, interacting with other creatures and objects who all teach you different songs. And singing is how you interact with other wildlife, and when you learn new songs, you unlock different abilities. And just like with Metroidvanias, learning new abilities can actually unlock new paths in already visited parts of the forest. So there's a big emphasis on going back and re-exploring parts of the forest that you've already been to. Just like Shadow of the Colossus End Journey, this game doesn't really hold your hand at all, and it really gives very little instruction on what it is you're supposed to do. You're kind of just on your own to experience and progress through the world that Zoink Games has created for you. There's a very interesting art style as well. It's very nice to look at, and also the sound design in this game just seems phenomenal, and it's all made in-house too, which is really cool. The world of Feja seems like a world that's worth getting lost in for a few hours. Sorry if I keep butchering the name of your game, I apologize. Moving on to number 2, we have Dandara, which I first saw in the Nintendo Nindy stream, and I've had my eyes on it ever since. This is a 2D Metroidvania game, but what's interesting with this one is you can't run or walk. The only way to get around is by jumping, which at first feels really weird and semi-clunky, but once you get used to it, you'll be jumping around and taking out enemies with no problem, and as on the plus side, you look awesome doing it. Just like every other Metroidvania game, the further into the game you progress, the more abilities you unlock, and the same goes for Dandara. Meeting new characters will unlock different platforms for you to use, which of course means that now it's time to backtrack to those parts of the map that were previously closed off. Combat feels very nice too, and it's all based around bouncing around and trying to get behind enemies to take them out. It makes getting comfortable with how Dendara controls much more rewarding. If you're a fan of the Metroidvania genre, this is definitely one to check out. It really has its own unique style and does a great job at standing up against the classics like Metroid and Symphony of the Night. And just like Axiom Verge, it does a good job at standing out on its own while also feeling super familiar. And finally, at number 1, we have Crossing Souls, which is an action-adventure game, and this game is super 80s. You can tell right away just by looking at it. The cutscenes are actually inspired by 80s cartoons, and there are a ton of references to movies that came out in the 80s, like The Goonies and Back to the Future, and there are levels that are inspired by classic 80s arcade games. You guys remember arcades? The game takes place in the suburbs of California, where 5 friends discover this mystical stone that holds some sort of power, and an ex-army general catches wind of this and sieges the town, trying to get a hold of this stone. You get to play as each of those 5 friends, with each one having their own sets of skills and each controlling differently. And you change out characters on the fly too, so you can switch in and out depending on what enemy you're fighting or what puzzle you have to solve. Crossing Souls definitely seems to have a lot of personality, and I'm a sucker for anything Goonies and Stranger Things-esque. There's just something about the 80s, man. I don't know what it is. Oh, and it also has a killer synth pop soundtrack, because of course it does. And cue the 80s music. Oh, and as a quick bonus, because it slipped in at the end of the month, we want to mention Into the Breach. This Steam game is from the makers of FTL, and if you know what that game is, you know what you're getting here. So far, it's a really fun sci-fi mech turn-based RPG from a top-down perspective that is very much in the same vein as FTL in terms of management, vibe, and challenge. It's kind of hard to explain, but it's great. Check it out. And those are 5 smaller yet awesome games of February 2018. But we want to hear from you, so meet us down in the comments and let us know what you think. Do you have any other games that you'd like to recommend, and have any of you played any of the games on this list? Let us know. And as I'm sure you already know, hitting that like button really helps us out. And if you're new here, subscribing is definitely a good idea, because we put out videos like this every single day. As always, thank you for coming to hang out with us. We really appreciate it, and we'll see you next time right here on Gameranx.